Welcome to Office Hours by Triple X Church. I'm your host, Carl Thomas. I'm a pastor, certified neurohealth coach, and a guy who frankly struggled with a lot of the stuff we are going to be talking about today for nearly 20 years, until I found freedom about a decade ago. In today's episode, I am going to be jumping in and answering this question. Is it better to focus on journaling and reflection versus worrying about sobriety, or is there value in sobriety as well? That's what I will be discussing today, so make sure you hang in there with me. Recognize that no questions are off the table, and I'm going to be as honest with my answers as I possibly can be, so don't get offended if you don't like my answer. So, without any further delay, let's jump in. Okay, so I guess a couple weeks ago, this question came into our Office Hours website or webpage. Hey, Carl, some people say it is okay to use porn when trying to stop and just focus on journaling about their experience and why they did it. Others stress the importance of sobriety in recovery. What do you recommend and why? All right, great question. And yes, I've heard advocates of both positions, right? You have the two extremes. One is, hey, just focus on the reflection, introspection. Don't even worry about what you're actually doing. Eventually, you'll get there. The other one is, hey, you got to be sober at all costs. Okay, get sober, sober, sober. And to be honest, the why of, focusing on the why of the reason you're going to this stuff, and that all kind of falls by the wayside. And that's the problem with extremes, right? Is each extreme is extreme. And usually when you go with an extreme, you're going to get an incomplete answer. And I would never advocate either extreme. So the answer is, what do I recommend? Yes. No, both. I don't know if that helps, but here's the thing. There's absolutely a lot of value in journaling. In fact, I tell guys in the Live Free community all the time, hey, listen, if you slip up, don't just chalk it off as a failure, get discouraged, and say, okay, I got to start over with my sobriety. And move past it, all right? Spend some time in the mess, right? What was going on today? Did I see this coming? What could I have done differently? What emotional stuff was I going through? These sorts of things are very important to kind of analyze and go through, because that's what's going to help you in the long term figure out why you're going to porn in the first place. If you just focus on sobriety, and when you have a good day, great, and when you have a bad day, it's time to start over, and just blow by all the reasons you're going to this stuff, and taking the time to actually think and do some self-examination, honestly, you're never going to get anywhere, in my opinion. All right. However, sobriety is needed. All right. And this isn't just because of purity or God or any of that stuff. No, this is scientific. Okay. Scientifically speaking, sobriety is needed. Okay. And this is why. All right. You're not going to necessarily find this being said by a counselor or a PhD, but when I deal with guys, I would say most guys and women, I would assume, who deal with porn or any other unwanted sexual behavior, they usually fall into one of two camps. You have the one camp that, let's just say, they're truly, quote unquote, addicted. All right. And then you have the others where they kind of go to it because it's what they use to numb out and just escape. Right. And a lot of what determines which camp you fall in has to do with the frequency. But the guys that are doing it daily or semi-weekly or weekly, what happens is they're operating at a super high or artificially high level of dopamine. All right. So their brain, every time you orgasm, you're releasing dopamine. All right. Every time you're picking, doing your hunt for nude pics and nude videos, you're releasing dopamine. And your brain likes dopamine. Dopamine feels good, right? So if you're doing it every day, your brain gets used to this artificially high dose of dopamine, because dopamine is not supposed to, on a daily, be a surge that you experience like you do with an orgasm. But if you're looking at porn all the time, you're going to be consistently overtaxing your brain, shall we say, with dopamine surges. And so what happens is your brain gets used to it. And you get to a point where it's not even so much about the reason you go to porn. I mean, that's still there, don't get me wrong. But now you're dealing with a whole nother level of problems, which is, hey, how do I get my dopamine fix? And so, yeah, you need to have sobriety because you gotta kind of reset your brain, right? You gotta get it to a point where it's kind of operating at a normal level or a semi-normal level. Because when you're in that elevated dopamine stage, trying to do introspection, reflection, asking the hard questions is going to be very difficult, right? Because you're working in a cloud. Certain parts of your brain shut down, literally shut down when certain neurochemicals are released and things like that. So without getting into all the details, you gotta kind of come back to earth to do the deep work, right? The stuff that's really going to help you in the long run. Now, the guys who, let's just say they're not daily or semi-weekly users, but they're once or twice a month, I'm not going to say that they still aren't enjoying the dopamine rush, but maybe their brain's not operating at such a high level. I would still say you need some sobriety just to make sure you're where you need to be, right? Normal. But at that point, yeah, now the shift in focus goes to, I got to figure out why I'm doing this stuff, right? What happened here? I had a bad day at work. I came home and then I decided to go look at porn. And the guys that just focus on sobriety and that's it, that's kind of where the conversation will end. Hey, I came home, I looked at porn, I don't know why. Trust me, the answer as to why you looked at porn it's all over, right? It's you can find it. And it's more complicated than just, oh, I just felt horny. No, there's something that triggered that horniness in you, right? And so you got to do the digging. Oh, you know what? I went to work. My boss yelled at me. Well, how'd that make me feel? Well, it made me feel like a piece of crap. Okay. When else did you feel like a piece of crap? Well, my parents kind of made me feel like a piece of crap growing up because they never were happy with me. They never thought I was good enough. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. So we're dealing with some self-worth issues. Okay, how do we address those, right? And that leads to probably counseling and other things. But anyway, the bottom line is you have to have that conversation in your head. And a great way to do that is journaling. Okay, journaling is very valuable. I tell guys all the time, yeah, take the time to journal because when you write it out, it's some sort of brain science magic. But when you write it out, you process a little more, right? You write slower than you speak. You got to think about what you're writing. When you write, you kind of commit it to memory too. Like there's things about writing that help you retain and also build some awareness and deeper analysis goes on than if you're just kind of pinging it around in your brain pan. So journaling is great. Yeah, if you use, don't get, oh man, I suck. I'm super discouraged. Yeah, okay. But don't throw that moment away. It's a learning opportunity. Journal about it, figure it out. But at the same time, yeah, you want to try to avoid as much as you can because you want to try to keep your brain at a normal level of dopamine and you don't want to keep just feeding it what it wants so it's in this elevated state where processing and doing all this deeper work is going to be very difficult, if not impossible to do. So there you go. I hope that helps. If you have a question for me to answer on our next office hours, go to xxchurch.com/office-hours and submit your question there. And I will definitely answer it in an upcoming episode. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.